In 1992, 11 nations agreed to surrender their currencies. No one knew if it would survive its first crisis. Brussels, Belgium, February 7, 1992. The Maastricht Treaty was signed. It wasn't about trade. It was about binding Europe so tightly together that war became impossible. The mechanism was money. A single currency to be born in 1999 would erase borders no army could cross. The euro didn't exist yet, but the decision to create it had already been made. To understand why, rewind to 1945. Europe lay in rubble. Germany had collapsed. Soviet tanks sat at the continent's eastern edge. Western European nations were economically crippled and militarily hollow. They faced a choice: rebuild separately and remain vulnerable, or integrate so deeply that conflict became structurally impossible. The European coal and steel community formed in 1951. 6 nations pooled coal and steel production under one authority. Control the raw materials, the theory went, and you control the capacity to wage war. Economics became the architecture of peace. By the 1960s, that community had grown. France, Germany, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, 6 became the European Economic Community. Trade flowed across borders, but each nation kept its own currency, and currencies created friction. Exchange rates fluctuated, businesses couldn't plan, trade slowed. Then came the 1970s oil shock. OPEC embargoed oil, inflation spiked across the West, European currencies spiraled against each other. The German mark strengthened, the Italian lira weakened, exporters couldn't compete. The dream of seamless European trade hit a wall. Something had to change. In 1979, Europe tried the European monetary system. Countries would peg their currencies to each other within narrow bands. It was a halfway measure. Currencies stayed linked but not unified. It worked better than chaos, but it wasn't integration. It was coordination. The real push came later. Cold War tensions eased. Germany was about to reunify. A reunified Germany would be the continent's economic powerhouse. France and other nations worried. How do you contain German economic dominance? You bind it inside a shared currency. You make Germany's fate inseparable from everyone else's. The Maastricht Treaty drafted the rules. Countries had to meet strict criteria: low inflation, controlled deficits, stable exchange rates, low interest rates. Only disciplined economies could join. The euro would be a currency of rules, not politics, or so the architects believed. January 1, 1999. The euro was born, but only in electronic form. Banks and traders switched overnight. Currencies no longer floated freely against each other. They were locked at fixed rates, then dissolved. 12 nations had surrendered monetary sovereignty. Their central banks no longer controlled money supply. A new institution did, the European Central Bank. 3 years later, physical euro notes and coins entered circulation. Billions of coins were minted. Trillions of old currency notes were withdrawn. The transition was the largest currency swap in history. For the first time, a European could travel from Dublin to Athens using a single coin. The economic rationale was clear. A single currency eliminates transaction costs, stabilizes trade, and prevents competitive devaluations. Countries can't cheap their way to exports anymore. They have to compete on productivity and innovation. That was the theory. The euro would forge a genuine economic union. But the euro also meant something political that few wanted to admit. Nations surrendered control over their own money. In a crisis, they couldn't print their way out. They couldn't devalue to restore competitiveness. They were bound by the same monetary policy, whether that policy suited them or not. Integration came with costs that would become visible only later. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe for more economic history. Each week we trace how money shaped the world. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.